I'm Virginia Kuhn. I'm research faculty here at the Institute for Multimedia Literacy, and I'm the associate director here.
Great, and I understand you had a digital dissertation. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and what that means?
I did write a digital dissertation. It was actually one of the first born digital dissertations in the country. A dissertation is sort of the final step in getting your doctorate, and as such it has to show really mastery of a field, but it also has to show unique and fresh scholarship. So because my doctorate was earned in rhetoric and composition, I was looking at what writing means in the 21st century. And I sort of did a history of writing, and my research showed me that digital technologies are inherently image-based. So in order to write with the language of images, I had to do it digitally. So it would have, in order to prove my theories, I had to enact them. So I had 300 pages of text, but also hyperlinks, moving images, still images, and all of the things that go into a dissertation.
Can you give an example or two of like what could not be said in text that had to be said in other ways through media in the digital dissertation?
Right. So, for instance, there was a portion where I was demonstrating what the translation is between a book and a film. And I couldn't really enact that without showing clips of the film. So I used an electronic book platform called TK3, which is a platform put out by the Institute for the Future of the Book. And they were someone I had worked with for a long time. I had taught with their program. So in that platform, I was able to show many, many pages of heavy, heavy text, but then within those pages, I could have a moving film clip to actually make my point. So I was actually writing with images in ways that I simply couldn't do on paper alone. All of the images are able to be, if you click on them, you get their citation information, you get a larger image, but you also can get links to the text that explains further where this comes from. As we get in here, I'm actually writing with the language of images, where I'm showing screenshots and how paintings, for instance, this is a classic Goya painting from the, hundreds of years old, and when you view it in full, it represents one thing. When I cite it, cite it by taking just a portion of it, this could be a man holding forth instead of a man being shot. So the picture becomes differently. And again, the point of the dissertation is to help, is teaching based, so it's to help students become critical consumers of media. The still images I could probably handle on paper. There are places in here where there are film clips that definitely the moving images couldn't be handled. But the other thing is, due to publishing costs and due to the cost of color publication, I could never print this out with the depth and quality that I could in paper. It's just not possible. But I mean, if I had all the money in the world and I had a press, I could probably do this, but I certainly couldn't do this as a graduate student enacting it. Right. So that's part of the point too, is that the network world allows writing with images is now commonplace, where publishing print pieces with images is not commonplace. It's only those with the money and the resources are able to do it. So this, the possibility exists, but practically it couldn't exist. And as I say, the film clips definitely could not be there. I also have, every image has citations that these are these are called anobeams. So this is not the best example because I linked it to a picture, but I can add information to a page without disrupting you from the page. So again, that gives more, this could not be done on print.
And what's one of the basic findings of your dissertation?
One of the basic findings of my dissertation is that digital technologies allow us a depth of scholarship that we cannot get on paper. What I mean by that is, for instance, if I have if I have a source that I'm citing, I can, if I'm writing a book, I can give you that source way back at the end of the book. But I can't show you the source. I can't show you a web page. I can't show you the way that the images actually speak. In my digital dissertation, however, I was able to give you the text, but then I could give you it's called a complex annotation. So you could click on the text on a highlighted word, and that could open up into a web page, further film clips, further text, all those things that sort of buttressed my argument. So it made this really deep sort of thoughtful piece, and it allowed me to show some complexity that I just couldn't show on paper alone.
And how about your committee and others? Were they supportive of your doing something that's different?
Yeah, my committee was very, very strongly behind me after they became utterly convinced of my argument. So they were supportive, and one of the reasons that I wanted to launch a digital dissertation is that I wanted to push the envelope of what could be done within a doctorate and within the academy in general. So, for instance, when you're writing with the language of images, what does it mean to cite an image? Currently the convention is that you have to pay for clearance to cite an image, while you don't have to pay for clearance to cite text. Well, I refused to pay for clearance. I was scrupulous about citation practices, so I gave credit for every image, but I refused to, say, go to Hollywood and ask permission to use a clip, because that sort of effectively limits what can be said. And I just thought that if we start letting the film industry sort of dictate what gets said in academia, then we're in trouble.
And was there any other resistance with regard to the distribution of your digital dissertation?
Well, distribution was an issue as well as archiving, and mostly I actually faced an 8-month battle after the time I successfully defended my dissertation till the time my doctorate was awarded. They sort of put it on hold, and it wasn't until a lot of press coverage came at the dissertation that the University of Wisconsin, where I got my doctorate, finally released and gave me the doctorate.
And what was the reaction to your digital dissertation?
The reaction was, as I said, my committee was strongly supportive, and the university itself, once we got the details worked out, was very, very supportive. For instance, the graduate school representative said, "We have been waiting for someone to push the envelope, and you stand firm and do not." I refused to make a printed copy, saying that would completely undercut my argument. So they were all very supportive, although the official word had to be, they had to be sort of reluctant to grant it. And I understand the dissertation does need to hold to convention. It has to show the highest standard. It shouldn't be easy to get a doctorate. You do have to hold to the highest standard of intellectual inquiry. But on the other hand, the university is supposed to be a place where unique scholarship gets done. And when you're talking about digital media, you can't do unique scholarship unless you're using the digital media.
What would you advise scholars who want to move in a more digital direction for their own dissertations? What kinds of things should they watch out for or think about?
I think scholars moving toward digital dissertations need to keep in mind a couple of things. We're right now at a sort of pivotal moment where you need to work almost twice as hard as you would for a normal dissertation, because you have to prove to conventional scholars that your work is worthy of the doctorate. But in order to integrate the images and the film clips and the hyperlinks, it's like writing almost 2 dissertations. But I would say if your research warrants it, then you can't help but not move digitally. And really in the 21st century, in a networked world, that's getting to be more and more the case. There are very few fields that don't warrant that type of work. But the one thing I would actually say is that you need to have your argument rehearsed for the form and the content of what you do. And so as long as you can support why you're doing this, as long as it makes sense, as long as sort of images or hyperlinks aren't used gratuitously, as long as they have it's a very controlled design decision, then I think you're okay.